Well, hey there team, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to my overview of Knock on the Coffin Lid. So for those on across that I do overviews on this channel, I have a look at the first 2 hours of a game. That's the Steam refund window. Steam says you can make up your mind about whether you want to keep a game or not during that time period, and I would broadly agree. Generally speaking, I would say 20 hours in, you're not going to change your mind about how you felt 2 hours in. So it's a broad strokes info kind of video, short and punchy, keep it under 10 minutes, and then you can make up your mind on your own. So what a pleasant surprise. This kind of came out of nowhere for me. It must have been in early access and it's gone 1.0. Those sort of releases can sneak up on me. But I jumped into it and I should say, pleasantly surprised. This is really cool. So much so that I'm considering playing way more of it and just doing a good old review. It could be a bit of a Swiss cheese where it's aligning, just happens to be tickling me right at the right time. But here's the thing. This genre of these roguelike deck building card battler type games, I feel at the moment have kind of washed the market out. You know, in previous generations, I'd used World War II games and then zombie games as the example. Just, you get so fatigued by them, and I'm fatigued from this genre among many other genres. We're kind of in a genre fatigue space at the moment. How about all these bloody survival crafters that look exactly the same, you know, and there's a similar problem with this genre. So while I recognize most of them are quite good fundamentally, it takes a lot for me to give one a go and actually be quite taken with it. So the reason for that kind of preamble setup is maybe you sit in that same camp, maybe you see this and go, oh, not another one of these games. Well, take it from me, I actually think this is an exception. This is quite wonderful. And what it's doing that sets it apart is it's incredibly narrative heavy, yet still offering an engaging loop. I suppose you could argue the magic of something like Slay the Spire is that the more hardcore you go into builds and mechanics and runs, and take this from me, a big fan of roguelike sort of meta these days, you kind of move further and further away from any sort of narrative trapping, and it becomes purely procedural, about the run, about the gameplay distilled, which is great. I mean, consider what we looked at recently, Path of Acra, absolute gold standard, same sort of idea, but it kind of becomes a little bit more incompatible. So this game goes up the other end of the scale. It has some very clever ways of marrying it to a narrative through line, but I would argue that kind of simplifies the system a little bit. It moves less from like a procedural smorgasbord of deck variety and more kind of encased in like an RPG. It feels more RPG-like in many ways, where you're picking up loot and equipping, you know, items, armors, weapons, and then trying to get set bonuses and that as well. These are things that you wouldn't say are strictly part of the deck builder paradigm. But then it's clever enough to take some of the learnings from things like Card Hunter, which I talk up all the time. Everyone should try that. The idea of having a gear piece, having cards attached to it. So if you wear this helmet, these cards will end up in your deck. But yeah, it makes for a more, I don't want to say linear, but let's call it focused or structured experience. And I think it hits this magic sweet spot that in the kind of arms race to be the next big card deck builder, they move further and further away from. The main shtick that sort of glues it together is the idea that you're dead or you've died and you're sort of infinitely resurrecting and working with this bloody Mortis or whatever his name is, his death stand-in. But one of the cool things that you realize straight away is the game has fantastic cutscenes, art. I think it's all really cool, and a lot of variety to it. It's very fantastical. You never know what's around the corner, and there's just so much cool stuff going in there, curated more than procedural, that it feels like an adventure. I don't know how else to put it. Like in mouthfeel only, theme and all that aside, it kind of reminds me of things like Willow or The Neverending Story. I know I'm dating myself, but the appeal of those things to me were the fantastical nature of the solo hero's journey into the unknown. And that is something that's not really often tapped in any gaming, which is tragic because I feel like a lot of us have an appetite for it. And the closest thing that you usually get is an RPG. And then they get a lot more bogged into, you know, spreadsheets and numbers and that sort of stuff. And I feel like the more you get into that hardcore Dungeons & Dragons stuff, the more that you lose of the imaginative majesty of just a cool environment that you can lose yourself into. So yeah, I'm talking a bit in platitudes, but how else is one to describe how a game feels? So this feels like an adventure. Anyway, so the idea is that you as part of like a sort of security envoy going to some talks. It's not super clear yet, but the game is starting to onion back the layers of the story. You've died, it seems that you were poisoned and tricked, and you're resurrected by this dude. And then even in the opening cutscene, off you go. He sends you into the world. He says, right, you're back to life. Do whatever you want to do. And then almost immediately, at Groundhog Day, you're dead. He knocks on the coffin lid, wakes you back up again. And it's like, what happened? And you're like, well, I went off and did all these things. I died. And he's like, well, tell me about them. And it creates this narrative framework that when you start your first run of the game, it is actually canonically after you've already died doing that run. And it plays out as a dialogue narration that kind of reminds me of bloody the old Prince of Persia Sands of Time, right? Where you could rewind time. Oh, that's not how the story went. You know, like there was this sort of tongue-in-cheek narrative overarching voice of your dude regaling the past, and it does that here. And it's fantastic because it creates a great way for a discovery-based, dialogue-based narrative to drive forward without being a bloody chatty Cathy, which is a huge problem that games suffer from these days. They want to deliver narratives, but they can't just stand on their own world design often and be, you know, a Gordon Freeman silent protagonist. They've got to bloody talk non-stop. So this finds a middle ground and it works incredibly well, where you're basically recounting what happened to this kind of all-knowing death god type dude. It's not really clear. And so off you go on your adventure. They give you this map and it is shuffled up and procedural. I had a really good first run. Almost all my time was the first run, to the point where I thought maybe it's too easy. But on my second run, I immediately died like 4 minutes in. And I'm on my third run at the moment and I've been absolutely bashed by bandits and I drank some dirty water from a puddle and I've got like a bug in my deck. I think it's like a plague curse card and you essentially have to exhaust it. They call it burning in this, where the idea that you play a card to temporarily remove it for that round. So quite powerful positive cards, but it's also how you remove a negative affliction that's stuck in your deck and you get it out for that combat. So yeah, I'm trying to fight off dudes while my dude's basically got the shits. But I find that narrative trapping really good, and it marries really well with you starting off as this dude, barefoot, sword in hand, off you go. And by the end of it, you know, I had gear pieces and set pieces and I was fighting a fairly big boss, but even then that was barely scratching the tip of it. I don't want to get into spoiler territory, but I effectively came up against a boss that is like a mortal, right? And you and the narrative guide go back to the drawing board and they go, well, what did we learn from that run? And a couple of things came up. I found out about a death cult and a shrine. So that's a lead in future runs, is try and find members of this death cult and find out if there's a way to cheat death to try and circumvent this boss. Another one, I came across this demon blacksmith who mentioned offhand that he could make me invulnerability armor, but I'd need the eye of a golem. And that's what killed me in the second run, because the golem's quite close, but it's kind of boss level. So there's this sort of progressive, even though it's Groundhog Day, it's about learning the world and where to go. So I need to find out a way to defeat this golem to get the golem's eye, which could then in turn be used to make an invulnerability armor piece, which could then give me a fighting chance against the final boss. There's also this other area, the Sacred Steps or Scarlet Steps or something or other like that, which apparently there's some sort of thread there that might give me some more answers that I want to have a look at. So you finish a run, you die, you lose, but then your dudes go immediately to what I talk about often about being, you know, masculine narrative tendencies, is about solving the problem. You know, these guys don't really want to care about how they feel about each other. They want to work together. They want to go, right, well, we got to beat this invulnerable chick at the end. How are we going to do that? Here's some options. Here's some directions you can go and explore. And presumably they're going to have their own roadblocks, and I'm going to continue through this fantastical world where I went through swamps with giant mosquitoes and fighting off undead dudes and some bandits on the road as well. There's a whole dwarf orc thing. Seems like the dwarves are the big bad guys and they've invaded, and then there's been a demon infestation in the human cities. It's wonderful. And I am so invested, and I kind of want to put another dozen hours in to just really see where it goes. So yeah, I cannot sing praises high enough. This game is the breath of fresh air that this genre requires. If you're expecting it to be a Slay the Spire killer or something like that, something where you're really going to crunch the numbers and you know, do the math memes in your head, right, and project all the different possibilities, that's probably not this. Not to say that it's easy, but it's narrower in scope. It's more about your hero's journey, his items, his run, and kind of the emergent story that comes from it, that just so happens to be under the trappings of a card battler that you build your deck out at a sort of more rudimentary level. I love it. This is really cool. Anyway, team, check it out yourself. Might just leave it there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.